The House Oversight Committee launching an investigation into the classified documents that have been discovered at a private office that had been used by President Biden for a period of about 3 years. This, as we learned, those documents said to have intelligence on Iran, on Ukraine, and the United Kingdom. Meanwhile, the president breaking his silence on the scandal when asked about it in Mexico yesterday.
People know I take classified documents and classified information seriously. I was briefed about this discovery and surprised to learn that there were any government records that were taken there to that office. But I don't know what's in the documents. I've turned over the boxes. They've turned over the boxes to the archives, and we're cooperating fully with the review.
Okay, where does this go from here, right? Jonathan Turley, got a lot of questions, sir. Good morning to you. Law professor, George Washington University, and Fox News contributor.
Good morning.
Good to have you on. You've written a couple pieces in the last 24 hours alone. One of your theories is that he was using this as research for his own book. I don't think that's fact.
Well,
I think it's a theory, but explain that.
Right. Well, the only reason I raised it is as we look at why the documents were there, one of the most obvious explanations is that the president has been working on a book, which was eventually published, that talked about his work in Ukraine and other countries. So it makes sense that there were going to be documents dealing with his diplomatic efforts. The real question here is why classified documents made it into the box. Usually when vice presidents and presidents leave, they can request documents. There's usually an archival record. We don't know any of that information of how these ended up there, why they stayed there for so long. And what the president said yesterday was really rather unintelligible in the sense of, he said, you know, the lawyers told me not to ask what the documents were. Well, I can understand a lawyer saying don't say anything because there's a potential criminal investigation. But there are two steps to this investigation. One is to secure the documents, which has occurred, and the second is to determine if there was any breach of security. For that, you need to know who saw the documents. And the chief witness is the president. You have to ask him, here are the documents in the box. Do you remember asking for these, working off these, showing these? The president just said I was briefed but told not to ask what the documents are.
Yeah, I find that strange, too, because also, you're the commander-in-chief and the president, so you can tell your lawyers, well, that's fine, you might advise that, but I'm going to look at the documents because I want to know what's in them, and then he could be more fulsome in his answers if he wanted to. It's almost like when he does a press conference and he says, oh, they told me not to call on any more reporters or not to call on this or that reporter. To me, I'm like, well, you are the president, so you can do whatever you want. The New York Post cover.
Right, Dana, and his job.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and Dana, you know, his job is to protect national security first, not his legal status. But also, this sort of has that, it's almost reminiscent of the Hillary Clinton documents. If you remember the Whitewater documents suddenly appearing outside her office and everyone saying, surprise. And that's where it was left, you know. And obviously, this is more serious because these are highly classified documents. And so we really do need to try to sort of reverse engineer on who brought them in, why, and who saw them.
I wanted to get to this. The New York Post cover, it says class houses, but I think obviously one of the reasons this is getting a lot of attention is just because of the way that the archives and the FBI and the President of the United States reacted to President Trump's documents that are there at Mar-a-Lago. Look at the media reaction when this happened at Mar-a-Lago in August.
The seriousness of the potential threat to national security information, I just don't know what to say.
If he was in possession of classified documents, those are by definition potentially harmful to our national security.
These are really classified and a really threat to national security.
That really jumps out to me as a national security threat.
This is a national security crisis.
The extreme risk that Trump was willing to take with our national security.
All right, so there's a double standard? Or is it, I mean, the Biden people are saying it's not apples to apples, that they're saying it's apples to oranges. How do you see it?
No, they're apples to apples, but the apples are different. You can say that, right? I mean, you can say that two people robbed a bank, but one also stole a car. There are differences between potentially criminal cases. This doesn't mean that the president should be charged. There are differences. There haven't been allegations of false statements or obstruction, but that doesn't mean that the underlying issue is any less serious.
Right.
And reporters are not supposed to act like, circus seals. You don't just bounce any ball thrown by the president on your nose. I mean, here you had a president saying something that didn't make much sense. Of course he can talk about, some of the details here. Did he request these documents? Why doesn't he ask what the documents are? There are a lot of questions that simply were shrugged off by the media.
Seems like there's a can of worms underneath all this. A lot of people didn't know what the Penn Biden Center was. This is on Capitol Hill. They incorporated his name, apparently, between 2017 and 2019. By what I read, he was paid a lot of money, almost $1 million, like $950,000 to use his name. He used it as an office also. James Comer is a Republican from Kentucky. He's coming in as the oversight chair. He was on Fox a bit earlier today, and he was talking about the millions of dollars from foreign countries that are going directly to these Ivy League schools, like Harvard, perhaps Yale, and Penn was one of them. And what was that money all about? And who helped facilitate that? This is kind of where the story goes next, and we can't answer that for today. But thank you, sir, for coming on.
Good to see you. Thank you.
We'll see what you have to say. Professor, thanks.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.